A big crackdown on street crime and street gangs. Federal agents fanned out on city streets today and arrested more than 160 gang members. Most of the action took place in Los Angeles. NBC's James Polk is there.
It is a deadly mix, gangs, guns, and drugs. So violent it means a murder a night in Los Angeles. But two of the toughest gangs, the Bloods and the Crips, are now the targets of federal firearms agents.
The Crips and Bloods have staked out a significant portion of the cocaine trafficking business in this country.
In a very public show of force, the firearms agency, ATF, staged raids in almost a dozen states, arresting close to 200 suspects. In Los Angeles, at crack houses run by gang members. In Portland, Oregon, at this drug house, seizing both cash and cocaine. In St. Louis, where this man, once a licensed firearms dealer, was charged with selling as many as 300 guns to gang members.
I really don't know what's going on.
What'd you think when they came in the door?
I thought they were hell started.
Gang members have outgrown the cheap pistols once part of street crime. These days they carry sawed-off shotguns and submachine guns. Los Angeles had more than 400 gang-related murders last year, both victims and killers often in their teens. But now carrying a gun while dealing drugs is a guarantee for prison time.
That's a 5-year minimum mandatory sentence. No probation, no parole. You're gone.
But with up to 100,000 gang members in the Los Angeles area, today's raids may not mean much.
When you pick up all these guys off the street, put them in jail, it does nothing. Most of these fellas run a lot of their stuff from the jailhouse.
At best, this is only a small beachhead in the war on drugs, and even that will be hard to hold. James Polk, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Special segment tonight, Drugs and Terror. Part 2 of our report on how the drug trade is an ever more vicious, violent business. In too many areas, it is out of control. Last night on this program, we saw how the drug lords of Colombia shoot or kidnap anyone who gets in their way. Tonight, what happens in this country, in America? NBC's Don Oliver and Noah Nelson show us the wide range of violence and the growing anger in some communities. We begin with Oliver and the bloody business of selling drugs.
A drug deal in New York City, in the shadow of the Pan Am building. In Los Angeles, drugs and money change hands. In city after city, in broad daylight, drug dealers brazenly ply their wares. And night after night, there are bodies, as the gangs who control the drug trade fight over territory. Across the country, hundreds are killed or wounded every week in gang-related shootings. Many innocent people who just happen to get in the way.
I just want to know why my child? What was...
Her 15-year-old daughter was killed.
You tell me where I can go to live in peace and peace of mind, then I will go. But there's nowhere that's safe in the city of Los Angeles.
All right, you got to stand up.
It is hard to get convictions in gang murders because witnesses are terrified.
It's a problem. I would say the general tendency is that they will not cooperate with us.
Law officers say there are direct links now between gangs and Colombian drug dealers.
Members of the LA street gangs know some of the Colombians well enough to go in and buy the cocaine in bulk.
Officials say the price of cocaine has declined, that increased violence is the result of greater competition to make money. Identical graffiti in many cities shows gang members are on the move. Los Angeles gang members have been arrested as far east as Kansas City. They go where the prospect of sales is greater.
You can make more money in Vegas than anywhere, because the city never sleeps.
It is just terrible. The quality of life is almost unbearable.
Whole neighborhoods have been taken over by gangs. Residents say they are prisoners in their own homes.
We had at least 10 killings in the last 2 years.
This man, who didn't want to be identified, watches the drug dealings from his window. His house was shot up in a battle between rival gangs. His wife and 3 children cowered on the floor.
Bullets went literally over my baby's crib where she was sleeping.
In a Hispanic neighborhood in Chicago, the fear level is the same.
We're living in a war zone.
49 West Gardena Boulevard in Peru.
3 weeks ago, police and sheriff's departments in Los Angeles began a major campaign to arrest gang members, sweeping through areas where they are known to gather. Hundreds have been arrested, and police have found what they knew all along. The drug money has turned street gangs into small armies.
We have semi-automatic and full automatic machine guns. We have 9mm submachine gun, type weapons.
In this kind of police action, it is difficult to get convictions. Some criticize the sweeps as high publicity hype.
Designed, I think, to palliate the public without delivering anything substantively that's going to change the situation.
And despite the new vigilance, the gang shootings and killings have continued. No one predicts a solution to the problem is likely to arrive soon. Don Oliver, NBC News, Los Angeles.
In Florida, undercover agents move against local crack dealers and users. Such raids appear to be effective, but residents of crack-dominated neighborhoods complain that as soon as police leave, the dealers are back in business. Angry and hopeless, some citizens have taken the law into their own hands, a vigilante backlash against crime. In Miami, crack houses have become the targets of arsonists. Recently, 4 suspected crack parlors were destroyed within a 10-hour period. Earlier this month in New York City, several people were arrested for beating a purse snatcher to death. They say their neighborhood has been plagued by a series of drug-related crimes. In Detroit, 2 men were charged with arson after they burned down this house. Butch Parisi and his neighbor, Perry Kent, say they took drastic measures to get rid of a nest of crack dealers.
We just had a problem. We had to have it taken care of. Right there and then. And that's what happened. The problem is solved. The neighborhood is safe again. And the kids can go out and play.
Criminologists say vigilantes act out of a misguided sense of righteousness.
And to burn down the crack house is to be as bad as the people who run the crack house. It's to violate the law. It's to say, I'm going to do what I want to do, regardless of what the law says.
But there is also a growing willingness among citizens to fight crime within the law. In New York, a Muslim group supplements police with its own 24-hour-a-day patrols. The drug pushers who were here in force have gone. In Los Angeles, a man videotapes drug deals for police to see. He says the risk is worth it.
Down with dope! Up with hope!
In Florida, citizens protest against drugs and in favor of law enforcement. They want dealers to get the message. In many high-crime areas, residents have begun to stand up and fight. But they are up against violent and powerful organizations, highly motivated by huge profits.
Crack houses in Miami it's not unusual to see them do $20,000, $30,000 business a day. 10 houses, $300,000 a day, and the green grass grows all around.
Meanwhile, these policemen continue the struggle to break crack's chokehold on their community. They say what they need to win are lawful allies, not vigilantes. Noah Nelson, NBC News, Miami.
Sometimes they're called drug supermarkets. They're street corners, really, alleys, places where illegal drugs are sold openly in this country. You can find them in almost any inner city in America, but they're not just an inner city problem. As NBC's Bob Jameson reports tonight, more and more of the customers are now coming from the suburbs.
When the crack and cocaine dealers open for business in Harlem, the line forms fast. The anxious assemble quickly with money in hand. And just as quickly, the money passes through a hole in a boarded-up building in exchange for the drugs. But increasingly, it is not this business on which the dealers are thriving. It is money from buyers like this man, commuters from the suburbs to Harlem, where the drugs are plentiful, cheap, and available in the open. Commuter links like the George Washington Bridge, which carries residents of the New Jersey suburbs to New York, are being turned into drug connections. The continuing problem of commuters buying drugs is hampering law enforcement efforts to gain control of the rampant narcotics trade in the nation's inner cities. 60 to 90% of the arrests in recent police sting operations in poor black neighborhoods here and elsewhere were white residents of suburban communities.
No.
Special Agent Robert Stutman of the Drug Enforcement Administration.
That the majority of money that goes to the cartels comes not from the crack addict, but from the cocaine user. And a significant percentage of those users are in the suburbs, not necessarily in the inner city or poor.
Stutman says that suburbanites are too often blind to the danger associated with buying drugs in a place like Harlem. That became a tragic reality recently in this New Jersey cemetery for the bewildered husband, relatives, and friends of 33-year-old Janet Piero. She was shot to death in a rented car on a Harlem street at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning as her 4-year-old son sat in the back seat. Authorities say the only explanation is that she was there to buy drugs. At treatment centers like Fair Oaks Hospital in New Jersey, doctors are noticing a disturbing trend of suburban housewives commuting in increasing numbers to the inner city to buy drugs. 30-year-old Sarah often took along her small son.
When you go and knock on the door and the person who opens the door has an Uzi or a gun in their hand, trying to make sure that they do know you and you're not coming there to rob them or try to get them.
But you're a suburban housewife. What are you doing there?
Getting my drugs.
You would go into one of these neighborhoods with your child and leave him locked in the car while you bought cocaine?
Yes, I would.
Were the drugs more important than your child?
Yes, the drugs were more important. That's the insanity of the disease.
Check it out and just tell me if you like it. Do you like it or? Please, don't move.
To combat the problem, cities like New Haven, Philadelphia, and Miami are mounting frequent sting operations. Police officers pose as drug dealers. Others wait nearby to make the arrest. And the suburban buyer's car is confiscated. While big city police have made thousands of arrests, they wonder what the threat of jail will mean to a commuter whose desire for cocaine obscures the threat of death. Bob Jameson, NBC News, New York.
On guns and drugs, we go to the jungles of Peru, where an American priest is fighting his own kind of holy war. A war against drug traffickers trying to control the Indians that he serves. This priest has gone well beyond the power of prayer. NBC's Brad Willis tonight.
Survival and salvation for the Indians in the mountains of Peru. For more than 4 decades, that's been the mission of Franciscan Father Mariano Gagnon. As his flock grew, they built homes, schools, a church, and hospital. Then came revolutionaries, the Sendero, or Shining Path. They ordered the Indians to grow cocoa plants for the drug lords. But the Indians refused. And that forced Father Gagnon to move his mission to higher ground. But first, there was a heavy price to pay.
And in February of this year, they killed 84 of my people. When they were attacked, they burned their houses down. They burned their fields. They've lost everything.
Everything, that is, except their faith in this man of God. In their new Amazon hideaway, Father Gagnon has brought his people something more than the Bible. Not what you would expect from a religious man. He has given them guns. Now preaches the theology of survival.
Después, si bien es cierto que ni los americanos, si se quedan aquí. If we're attacked, I think they should defend themselves. They have a right to defend their children. They have a right to defend their women. And they have a right also to defend their land.
They know the revolutionaries will follow them and what will happen if they are found.
Once they run away from them, Sendero sends a group of natives and themselves to kill the people because they ran away. I have very strong convictions, and I think my presence here is necessary for them. Otherwise, these people will be completely forgotten.
Help me, Jesus, they sing, praying for protection in the arms of the Lord. But shortly after these pictures were taken, the Sendero revolutionaries found the settlement. There was a gun battle and death on both sides. At last word, Father Gagnon has moved his mission even higher into the Andean mountains. Brad Willis, NBC News.
Father Mariano defends his actions, saying the guns were provided by Peru's military, and his church supervisor in Peru says the attacks on the Indians have created what he called a critical situation.